Well, I'll mostly be right here, but I'm just going to go over there for a minute to make sure everybody comes in. So come on in, grab, if you don't have a rule book or a call book, grab it. There's a signing over there.
They brought more than me. How are you?
Okay, so before you sit down, make sure you have a green book. If you run out of right call books, that's okay. We're not going to use those tonight, and we'll have more of them later.
It's not that cold.
Okay, it is 7:30 and we are going to start on time. As stragglers come in, you might want, if they're friends of yours, you might want to gesture to them to grab a book. But one of the things that's important about umpiring is being on time. The game can't start without you. You cannot be late. So be on time. Now, what we're going to do in the next 4 weeks is we're going to prepare you for two things. The more immediate thing is we're going to prepare you to pass a 20-question rules test for which you must get 80% right or 16 out of 20. I usually pop quiz to see how many people know what 80% of 20 is, but I think since we're in a math classroom, that a lot of you, I think, have taken math and you know this already. So grab a green book and sit down, folks. It's to prepare you to pass that test, but more importantly, it's to prepare you to know the rules so that you will not embarrass yourself when you go out to put on your cap and your shirt and become a San Ramon Valley Little League umpire. I told a few of you this a few minutes earlier, but there are two ways that a manager can appropriately embarrass you as an umpire. Do so with dignity, do it privately, and the two things that that person can do is walk up and ask you a question that indicates that you don't know the rules, that you failed to apply a rule. Like, for example, aren't the bases loaded and there's one out and that was an easy catchable pop fly? Wasn't something supposed to happen there? Meaning someone should have called the infield fly rule. Or, you know, hey Blue, I think you might want to ask for help because I noticed, you know, with runner on first base, you were still standing in the right field foul line, and that's kind of out of position to make that call at second on the steal. So, and you know, that's once you learn your field mechanics, you realize you're in the wrong position. And so those are the two ways that smart managers can go out and say, you know, I'm kind of telling you, do a little bit better for us. Now, if someone screams at you, Blue, you're out of position! You know, that guy's a jerk, and you're going to deal with that in a different way. So what we're going to do over the first 4 weeks here is teach you how to not be embarrassed in terms of knowing the rules, and more importantly than your embarrassment, to allow you to function as that umpire that allows us to play baseball at San Ramon Valley Little League. And then on February 9th, on Saturday, February 9th, from 8 to noon, you're going to be at, and by the way, feel free to use the desk. There's a seat, there's a table back there you can sit on. We seem to be at capacity. February 9th, field mechanics is where you'll learn to be in the right position. You'll learn how to move, how to pivot. There's a lot of movement involved in being an umpire. Good umpiring is actually a fairly physical activity. To be a good plate umpire, you're going to be doing a lot of squats over the course of the game. I'm an old guy. I'm actually tired after I do the plate. To be a good field umpire, you're moving around. You're not stationary. So you'll learn that as well. But what we're going to do over the next 4 weeks is all out of this book, the Little League rules. Grab a rule book and have a seat. There is a new rule book every year. Okay, this is the 2013 edition. For those of you who are returning, I will tell you not that much has actually changed this time around. Those of you who went through this training last year, we had some pretty significant changes. For the first time in Little League Baseball, you could advance to first on a drop, swing and miss third strike. I mean, we had some pretty significant new changes. Grab a new rule book, and we're out of seats, so just grab some sort of butt space on a table or something like that. A green book right there on this table, and there's a sign-in sheet there. So, this is what we're going to be working on. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to tell you how this book is organized, because you can't just sort of take this book and like, oh, what's interference? Where am I going to find this? This book is organized primarily into 3 different separate functions. And by the way, there's a 4th function, which is right inside the front cover. When you're a veteran, this is the first place you look, because it tells you what is different this year versus last year. And you're going to be like, oh, they changed some softball rules, some tournament rules. I don't really see much different than the playing rules. But the 3 different parts of this book is in the front, you have the regulations. As an umpire, you're only going to be concerned with a little bit of the regulations. At the back, you have the tournament rules. Some of you are actually pretty good senior umpires and could do tournament play if you wanted to. But no one here realistically is going to be doing tournament games. Certainly not in your first year, you're not going to do it. It's the middle part of this book, the playing rules, that matter. That's what we're going to learn over the course of the next 4 weeks. And even within the playing rules, not a lot of them matter. There's rules for junior, senior, and big league. For those of you who are in this room, some of you will do juniors games, but what you are getting ready to do is be able to do AA games so that then you can move up to AAA. If you're 16 or older, or when you're second year and you're 14, you can do AAA, and then eventually move up to doing majors games, and then move on to juniors games or tournament games or things like that. Grab a green book. And not that I'm trying to bust the chops of the late arrivals, but I am. One of the most important things about being an umpire is being on time. We will start these sessions promptly at 7:30 so that we can end them promptly at 8:30 so that no one has to wait around. So, for those of you who have green books in your hands, I would like to start out by turning you to page 11. And this is something I care about. It's why I, as a volunteer, who could be doing a lot of other things with my time right now, choose to be the umpire-in-chief of San Ramon Valley Little League. And one of the things that I believe in is citizenship. I don't believe Little League is first and foremost about making you a better baseball player. Little League is about citizenship. And it's about citizenship through competition, fair play, knowing the rules, things like that. And so I want you to keep that in mind because you're an important part of that function. If you were at the meeting last time, I can't remember how I described it, but if Little League, playing Little League as a player is your citizenship baccalaureate degree, your bachelor's degree, being an umpire in this league is your master's degree in citizenship. You will experience things you didn't experience as a player. You will become a stronger, more capable person as a result. And on page 11 where it says general information, the purpose of Little League baseball and softball, the last paragraph of that section says, Little League is a program of service to youth. That's part of what we're doing here. We're trying to make you guys better, stronger people, and also provide some income to you so that you can get paid to work games. It's a program of service to youth. It is geared to provide an outlet of healthful activity and training under good leadership in the atmosphere of wholesome community participation. That's why we don't like jerks. We don't like jerks. The movement is dedicated to helping children become good and decent citizens. It inspires them with a goal and enriches their lives toward the day when they must take their places in the world. And what that means is have a job and be a productive member of society. And I guarantee you being an umpire will make you a better employee and a better manager someday. It establishes the values of teamwork, sportsmanship, and fair play. So I want all of that kept in mind as we go through this. Now, a lot of Little League rules may not be intuitive. Like, why do we have that rule? I want to lay 3 concepts on you that probably explain every single rule we have in Little League. 3 words. The 3 biggest problems you have in Little League or any organized athletics for youth is that it be fair, that it be safe, and that it move along, that it not drag out. And Little League's serious about that. And by the way, when you move up to the next level and you start playing at kind of the more competitive 13, 14, 15-year-old, and some of you have been there, and you start to play a couple more innings, Those games drag, but we want Little League games to move along. So a lot of the rules that you will be enforcing are to keep the game moving along, like 8 pitches or 1 minute between innings. You don't get to sit around and wait while the other team lollygags with their catcher getting on the equipment, or the pitcher goes and gets a drink of water and gets a hot dog at the snack shack. You have 8 pitches or 1 minute, and you will be expected to enforce that. I don't care that the manager comes out and says, little Timmy didn't get his warm-ups. Little Timmy wasn't on the mound. I've been standing here for 2 minutes since the last out. Batter up, okay? That's a pace of play. Fairness is the same thing. We want balance. We want competition. We want people to have a good time and become citizens. Safety is a big part of it as well. A lot of the rules come into safety, and that's why you enforce the rules. If you see someone in the third base coaching box checking his email between batters, that is against the rules. You walk up to that coach and say, put your cell phone away. Oh, I got a really important email from work. Well, then find a replacement and get off the field. Okay? Because that's a safety rule. Because if that guy gets hit in the face because he's busy checking an email from Bob in accounting, that's on you if you saw it and you didn't do anything about it. Tonight we're going to cover Rule 1 and Rule 9. We're going to start with Rule 9. And guess what Rule 9 is about? You guys, the umpire. And in keeping, grab out both of them, they're also on the table. Just like that bit I read at page 11, right there. Feel free to grab it. By the way, there's a chair right here. Someone's welcome to take. On page 89, just like I read the bit about what Little League is about, on page 89, toward the top of the page, 9.01b, this is what you're about. Each umpire is the representative of the league and of Little League International. You're not just the representative of SRVLL, you're the representative of Williamsport. And that means you're my representative as the umpire-in-chief. Don't embarrass me, okay? I will back you up, but I will also dress you down if you do something you're not supposed to do. You're the representative of the league. You are authorized, empowered to enforce the rules. And look at what the next word is. You're also required to enforce the rules. So guess what? When you're at AAA and Coach Dan is catching, little Timmy who's warming up to go into the game, and you walk over to Coach Dan and you say, adults are not supposed to be warming up players. Oh, no, this is how we do it at AAA. We don't enforce that one here. No! No! Make him show it to you. Make him show you a waiver. Because I tell you, there's not one. You enforce the rules, and it can be tough. Because Coach Dan will then get all chesty on you and say, I can't believe you're doing this. I need to warm little Timmy up. No! You can't do it. Okay? You can't do it. I'll have to ask you not to do this. And by the way, I'm actually picking on AAA parents warming up kids because we had a serious issue with that last year. I want to know who the managers and coaches are who violate rules like that. I want to know who the guy is who tells you, no, that's not the way we do it here, when it's something that's clearly against the rules. Because you are required to enforce the rules. You have authority to order a player, coach, manager, or league officer to do or refrain from doing anything which affects the administering of these rules and to enforce the prescribed penalties. So this is probably the first time in many of your lives that you go get to tell an adult something that they have to do. And you know what? You're going to do it with grace and dignity. You're going to do it calm, even though you're totally nervous inside. And even if it doesn't go particularly well, you're going to do it and you're going to be great at it. Now, another thing about what you're doing out there, and this is an important guideline, Rule 9.2 really guides your relationship with the managers and the idea that you may have done something wrong. And if you look at 9.2a, any umpire's decision which involves judgment, such as but not limited to whether a batted ball is fair or foul, whether a pitch or strike is a ball, or whether a runner is safe or out, is final. No player, manager, coach, or substitute shall object to any such judgment decisions. I mean, I'm sure many of you watch baseball on television. You know from that you can't come out of the dugout to argue balls and strikes. I mean, how many people have heard Krug or Kipe or someone like that say that on television? You know that. And you're going to live that as well. And I will tell you that as a plate umpire, that's going to be one of your biggest problems. Come on, Blue, you're squeezing my pitchers! Or, this is not a strike, Blue! Okay, believe me, when you're doing a double-A game, sometimes you want anything that leaves that guy's hand to be a strike. Because it may be the only thing that will be a strike with some of that pitching. But the point is, you call balls and strikes. What makes something a ball or strike is whether you've called it a ball or strike. You will not tolerate managers and coaches doing that during games. If a manager wants to come out in good faith between innings and say, hey Marcus, how you doing, man? Glad you're doing the umpire thing. Really excited about that. Hey, you know, the pitches up here around the eyes, you know, they're not strikes. It's kind of a little closer. If something like that happens, I wouldn't get too exercised about it. But I will tell you this, if it's on my watch and a manager calls time, I'm going to give him time. I'm assuming he wants to go talk to his pitcher, and he comes over and he's like, you're killing us, Blue. You know, those are not strikes. I'm going to say, you need to sit down, and this is your warning. Because if you argue balls and strikes again with me, you're done. You're gone. Okay, now I can do that. You're not going to do it quite the same way, but you're going to say, excuse me, sir, I'm calling the balls and strikes, and you are welcome after the game to critique me on it. I would love to hear what you think I'm doing wrong. You're also willing to tell I'm happy for you to go tell the UIC, but we have to keep this game rolling along, and it's not appropriate, pursuant to the rules, which I think you know, for you to come out and argue balls and strikes with me. That's life, okay? That's why we have umpires. You've got to make those calls. By the way, when someone comes to me, when a manager says, God, you know, it's terrible. You should have seen George Nelson out there. I mean, he's got the worst strike zone in the league. You know what I say to that person? You obviously care a lot about umpiring in this league. Tell you what, next January we start the next training cycle. Why don't you volunteer to be an umpire? And then, by the way, I'll listen to your complaints. Because until that happens, I probably won't. All right, so I got your back on the balls and strikes. Now, however, what I want you to pay attention to, and this is where I whipsaw the other way, which is 902B. If there is reasonable doubt that any umpire's decision may be in conflict with the rules, the manager may appeal the decision and ask that a correct ruling be made. Such an appeal shall only be made to the umpire who made the protested decision. So, for example, manager thinks batter in the box went around and thinks maybe you calling the balls and strikes didn't really pay much attention to his bat. You were just looking at the fact that the ball was way out of the strike zone and in the dirt, and you called it a ball. He can say, time, and he's got to come to you. Blue, did you note whether his bat went through the strike zone? I mean, if you took that into account, fine. But, you know, maybe you could get some help as to whether he went around on that one. You don't say, hey, Blue, get some help! Okay, that's wrong. Okay, I don't need help. I just called it a ball. But if he wants to come out and appropriately say, did you note whether he swung at that pitch, and maybe the first base umpire can help you in that regard, that's okay. I want to tell you this. Every one of you who's a first-year umpire is going to blow a call. And you're going to blow calls that are judgment calls, and that's fine. That's 9.02A. But you're also going to blow calls because you didn't apply the rules right. And some of these managers are good eggs, most of them are, and they're going to come out and say, I really hate to raise this, but did you pay attention to this? Like, for example, did you notice that the catcher was standing blocking the plate while the ball was still in the outfield? And my guy just stopped, you know, didn't want to run into him, and he was tagged out. shouldn't that be obstruction on the umpire? Did you take that into account when you called him out? And then if you did, you can say, you know, I did take that into account. In my judgment, he wasn't blocking the plate. But what's going to happen, because a lot of these rules are really hard to keep track of. I've only been umpiring for 3 years. I mess this stuff up all the time. You're going to say, you know what? I did not take that into account. Give me a moment to confer with my partner. If you go talk to your partner, you say, hey, you know what? I didn't take obstruction into account, but now that I think about it, that guy was totally standing right in the way for several seconds before the ball came in. Unless you saw it differently, I'm going to call him out. I don't disagree, says your partner. Okay. Runners out. Okay, that's how things are done appropriately under 902B. Okay, there's 2 steps in this though. The manager has got to call time, has got to come talk to you, in my view, has got to do it in a civil and appropriate way. And then you don't make the call with him right there in your face. You thank him for his observation, for his bringing a rule to your attention. You send him back to the dugout, you confer with your partner, and then you make the call. That's the right way to handle an appropriate on-the-field appeal, because you may not have gotten a rule right. You may have accidentally called someone out on an infield fly when there were runners on second and third and 3 outs or something like that. I mean, things may, or you may have neglected to make an infield fly call when it should have been an obvious infield fly call. Or you may have missed interference or obstruction or someone leaving the base too early. These are all appropriate things for a manager to call time and come talk to you about. Now, 902C is what I talked about. If the appeal is made, I do think it's appropriate for you to get together with your partner because it's good to have validation. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about how that interaction with managers should go?
What if you're upping the game by yourself? Not on you show or something?
Well, I mean, that happens from time to time. We try and avoid that. It's really, really hard on umpires to do that. First of all, if you're umping a game by yourself, you're only going to be a plate umpire. So you're not going to have any help from a base umpire. So obviously there's no one for you to confer with. But you're just going to have to do the best you can on your own.
I've seen scenarios where, like, if there's only one umpire, they stand behind the pitcher.
I will tell you, most managers don't like that, and I don't like that. And you get the extra $10 for being a plate umpire only if you put the gear on, and I want you to make that extra $10.
Is it because, like, if they can get in the way of the ball or something?
I honestly feel like it's too hard to call balls and strikes from behind the bat.
If you make a ball or a strike call or a call in the field and then they do appeal it, can you reverse the call, or once you make it, is it final, like a ball or a strike? Like with the example.
You can reverse the call. You can confer with your partner if you feel like you didn't have a good angle. However, that's not appealable. You're not changing your mind because of an appeal. That's not appropriate to appeal. I mean, if it's something where he's just arguing with you, was that a ball or a strike?
No, I mean like the example you gave,
Oh.
when the ball hits the dirt and the batter swings anyway, but you don't see it. Can
Right.
you reverse that once you realize that the batter?
Absolutely, because that's a question about the rules. Like, I either didn't see or didn't think about whether that bat went through the strike zone. And so I've got an appeal. That's application of the rules. And that line between application of the rules and a judgment call can be hard to make. And the good managers are going to make it clear that they're like, hey, Blue, did you think about? Or, hey, Blue, did you take into account? Not like, oh my God, you blew that call. I really want you to reverse it.
What do you do if, like, a coach is in, like, the dugout, like, saying mean things about you, like, disagreeing with all the calls that you make?
We'll cover that later, because that's not an appeal, but that's a very good question, and we will cover that. But the answer is, there are things you can do about it. And it's a big part of growing as an umpire, learning how to deal with that.
Similar to what he said, I'm just making sure, any call that you like make a call on and then coach talks to you about it and you realize you got it wrong, can any call be reversed? It doesn't matter what it was.
If
you realize you're wrong, can you reverse any call?
Yes, you can reverse a call as long as another play has not occurred.
Okay.
However, you don't want coaches coming out challenging your strike zone or challenging whether the tag was made. It has to be someone coming out in good faith. Because I will tell you this, your life as an umpire will be miserable if you get a reputation as a guy who can be talked into a call. And you will be letting us down on that one. Okay, so another thing to know in Rule 9 is Rule 9.03D. This is relevant for those of you who are not adults, which is most of you. Little League is really big on adults being umpires. In Little League's perfect little Williamsport world, those of us living in the greater Alamo, bottom end of Walnut Creek and north end of Danville would have legions of dads who are volunteering to become umpires. And that we wouldn't need to pay kids, and we really wouldn't even want you out there as umpires, as youth umpires. I will tell you that philosophically this is something that I vehemently disagree with Williamsport on, because I think this is a great opportunity for you guys to do this. And I will tell you, just whether it's the demographics or the practicalities of living in this part of the world along the 680 corridor, we don't have a lot of adult umpires. Those we have are wonderful guys. They're really good at what they do. And, but, you know, I don't have a room full of adults to call games. So what we do insist on having is an adult who is the buck stops here person for every game. And that is the adult game coordinator. And that's on page 90, this is rule 9.03D. We've never really had resort to an adult game coordinator, but I will tell you this, if you get in real trouble, where just you've got unruly fans, you've got two sets of unruly coaches at the AA level, and we had some incidents that got close to this. And fortunately, we had gentlemen like Larry Lynchy who were at games where things like this were happening, so we didn't need an adult game coordinator. But the home team is obligated to supply an adult game coordinator. So for example, Dan and Jens, if you're working a game together, someone in the stands who is not a coach, is with the home team, is supposed to be the adult game coordinator. And you should ask, who's my adult game coordinator? And the first couple of games you do in the beginning of the season, you'll be embarrassing the manager because he won't have one. He's like, oh, I didn't know I really needed to do that. You know, when I went to all the training stuff, I heard that guy Ward tell me I needed one, but I didn't really think I needed to do it. And you're like, no, we need to know who it is. It's a volunteer position that's supposed to be filled on all of the AA, AAA, and majors teams. And that person is who you turn to if things get really ugly. It's never had to happen, but it's a requirement, and Rule 9.03D covers it. Now, if you look at Rule 9.04A, there's a little bit of an ambiguity that I want to resolve, and it's use of the term umpire-in-chief. In this rule book, if umpire-in-chief is initial capitalized, you know, with a capital U and a capital C, that's me. Okay, but if it's just umpire-in-chief like it is in 9.4A, that means the plate umpire, or usually the plate umpire. It's the umpire-in-chief of the team of two. And keep in mind that with umpiring, you can have teams of 3 or 4 or even 6, or, is that right? Can you go to 7?
Yeah.
6 is the most you have. But we don't have more than 2. Okay? You know, I think for tournament play, I've seen 3, but it's usually never more than 2. And one of you has got to be the umpire-in-chief. And so that's that's the plate umpire. Now, what I want you to know about 9.4A, I want you to look at number 4. Because I want to talk about the official score and get this out of the way now. How many people had your mom or dad, while you were playing Little League, sit up in the booth, be the official scorer? Okay? I even did it for a year. The 2010 Cubs. I don't see anyone from the 2010 Cubs. I'm looking for Henry Powell, my son. I don't see Grant Jones here, but I know we got some. I was the official scorer for the 2010. I believe it was 2009. I don't remember. I think it was 2010. Okay. That official scorer is supplied by which team? The home team. Now, once that official scorer has the scorebook in hand and gets in the booth and it's game time, who does that official scorer work for? You. That person is your instrument. They're part of your equipment. And they do not belong to the home team. So, for example, if you hear like, yeah, go Johnny! Or, what I really hate is coaching from the score booth. Like, oh, Joe, you got to lay off that pitch. Between innings, you're going to go back and you're going to tell the official scorer, please, okay, knock it off. Okay, you're here to score the game. I'm not supposed to hear any chatter from you. Not supposed to be rooting for either team or the other. Please don't do that. And the other thing, and this is where it can become potentially significant, is you can't help the manager. You can't, like, you know, lean out, or there's a screen there so you can't do it, but you can't say, you know, hey, he's batting out of order. Okay, you can't do that. All right, the scorer works for you. So the best way to do it, of course, is at the beginning of the game as part of the game preliminaries. You need to introduce yourself, find out who the official scorer is. At AA, it can be really hard because we don't have a booth, and it's usually someone sitting in the front row of the stands for the home team. Find out who that person is, and you need to establish things like you're going to record the start of the game for me so we know when the official game start time is. And, you know, please understand you're working with me for this game. I look forward to working with you. Okay, but the official scorer works for you. Now, 9.04B talks about where the field umpire takes a position. We're going to cover that in field mechanics a few Saturdays from now. But positioning is important, as I said earlier. You move around. Now, a couple other things is if you look on page 91, this is going to be one of the places where I end up, one of the only places, few places, where I'm going to risk lightning from Williamsport striking me down. But this thing where it says important, carry your rule book, no, it's not important for you to carry your rule book. What's important, by the way, is for your rule book to look like this when you're done with it. When you're done with this training, with lots of writing and handwriting and highlighting on it, and, you know, tape flags and dog ears or whatever. But it's not important for you to carry this rule book with you, because we're not going to pause games so that we can do this. If someone wants to do that, that responsibility rests with the manager, okay? I coached for a number of years in this league. Probably not a big surprise to those of you who've worked with me that I was always the coach who was responsible for, like, Robert, look up, what rule is that? What rule is that? I need to go do an appeal to the umpire, you know? So it is the manager's responsibility to come out and bring something from the rule book to your attention. You are not going to break the game to go look up a rule. If a manager comes out and does that, that manager's doing a really cruddy job, okay? We're not going to do that. The other thing I would note, and I really would dog ear or mark page 91 somehow, because indexes are great. You know, for some folks, you probably know your way around this rule book. Looking at you, Chris. You got the index in your head already, but it's good to have that index in hand. Okay, so any questions about Rule 9, the umpire, before we move on to Rule 1? Okay, Rule 1, objectives of the game. Lots of wonderful statements, playing field, how big home base should be, all that kind of stuff. Don't worry about any of that, we got it covered. We're going to skip to 1.10, which is on page 52. Bats. Now, those of you who are new haven't lived it as umpires, the way those of us who've been umpiring the last 2 or 3 years have, but you probably lived through it as players, and that is the great composite bat, you know, whatever you want to call it, quandary that Little League has had. And just show of hands, how many people have your parents bought you a bat, and you found out by a throw-in umpire you can't use that bat? Yep.
Like some umpires, they'd say yes and some would say no.
Okay, and I'm going to explain why some may say yes and some may say no. I will tell you that a lot of sporting goods stores contributed to the problem by having these $300 bats in the $50 bargain bin. It's like, oh, look at this awesome bat, it's only $50. Is this legal? Oh yeah, it's totally legal. Anyways, like, it's legal for you to have it in your car, okay? You don't need a permit to buy the bat. But is it legal in a game? No, it's not. And part of why some umpires may allow it or some may not is when you are dealing with a composite bat, it remains the responsibility of the coach, the manager, to show you that it's on the waiver list. If you recognize it as a composite bat, it is disallowed. It is the responsibility of the manager to show you the little waiver printout. It's a printout that you can get off the Little League website. It is not your responsibility to do it. If a manager manager says, oh, come on, Blue, you know, that's your job. No, it's not. You've got to prove to me that that composite bat is on the waiver list, because the rule is no composite bats. And then the manufacturers went to Little League and they said, oh, but we got all these composite bats in inventory, and it's big business for us, and you know, we know there's all the intense guys who are going to buy those bats for the little Johnnies. It's big business. We get an extra $150 a bat for this. You can't do this to us. So then they take them and they do these tests to prove that the BPF, anyone know what that stands for?
That performance formula?
Factor, but yes, is no higher than 1.15, and that's a measure of its springiness off the bat. And so you have all these composite bat manufacturers go, and I don't even know what these machines look like, but it's like these machines that go whack, 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 baseball after baseball, and they have all these sensors on it. And what they're essentially trying to prove is that their expensive composite bat is no more explosive than a regular bat. So why you would bother to buy a composite bat, because it's not allowed to have any more explosiveness than a regular bat. I still don't understand this, but my apologies to those of you who are using composite bats. And of course, once you get out of Little League, you're going to use a composite bat. So anyway, 1.10 talks about the bats, and there's a few things I want you to know. No batting donuts. Okay, those of you who have been through Little League, you may wonder, like, why do we never have batting donuts? Well, you don't have batting donuts. Can anyone guess one of these three reasons why we don't have batting donuts? Safety. Somewhere along the line, Little League had to pay a lot of claims because people did these over batting donuts. And so we just don't have those, okay? Batting, triple. Any number of reasons. Bat rings. I don't happen to have a bunch of these with me, but yes.
Question, what about bat sleeves?
You know, that's interesting. Bat sleeves are not expressly forbidden, so I would think that they're probably allowed. However, the reason why you're not going to see them in an on-deck circle is why? Thank you! That's awesome. There is no on-deck circle, so we solve a lot of the batting donut problem in our league because we don't have an on-deck circle. Little League rules actually allow for an on-deck circle. We don't have it. Dents on bats. When you check bats, how many people have had the dented bat problem? I know I went through it with one of Matthew's bats. The one he was really wanted to hang on to too. The fact that it's dented does not disqualify the bat. It's the fact that it's deformed that it no longer fits through this. So you might, and that's why you see seasoned umpires actually run their hands along it, because what they're really trying to tell is, okay, is it misshapen enough? And if it is truly dented, it won't, because there'll be one side that sticks out and one side that doesn't, and it sticks. But we'll have more of these for you guys. I'm going to have a bunch of field mechanics, and that's one way to tell whether the bat is dented and should be pulled out of play. Now, look at note 5 on page 53. An illegal bat that must be removed. A legal bat must be removed. That's the rule, period. It must be removed. The penalties are set forth in Rule 6.06D, which will be covered when we do the batter. But there are real penalties. Those were new last year, and we spent a lot of time covering them. We'll cover them when we get to the batter this year. 1.11A3, the note. This rule is usually on the test every year. So this is one of those like, hey, it's time to pay attention 40 minutes into this. By the way, we covered a lot of stuff that's likely to be on the test as well. Sleeves, when a pitcher is pitching, okay? You can wear sleeves. You don't have to wear your short sleeve uniform. We play a lot of games in March and April when it's still pretty chilly. We have a lot of late in the day games where it's still chilly. What color sleeves can you wear?
Anything but white.
Anything but white, and what else can it not be?
Fluorescent orange.
Well, that's a very, actually there's 3 things. You cannot be distracting. That's a very good one, Will. That's the same point Will made. Could I could wear this color, navy, right?
Can't be too long.
I wear what you're wearing with the stripes?
No.
Has to be solid. Could I wear plaid?
No.
No. Okay. It's gotta be a solid color, and it cannot be white, and it cannot be distracting to the batter. Sleeves.
Speedos with a cup. Yeah.
1.11J.
They have a white one, they just roll the sleeve with it to their elbows and call it that.
I mean, if it protrudes in any way, I mean, if it's something where you can't see it, that's fine, but no. Because the ball is white,
Oh.
and it's just a rule that for safety reasons, because kids may not pick it up depending on the pitcher's delivery with white sleeves, it makes it harder. It's also why on pretty much every level of play, they try and avoid white backgrounds in center field. It's the same concept. Interestingly enough, if you read these rules carefully, it also says that you may not have a ball on your jersey, no symbol of a ball or emblem of a ball, because someone might, as you're delivering, see the ball on your chest and get it just, confused with one in your hand. So there are a lot of rules that are designed to avoid confusion. 1.11J, jewelry. This really comes up in this day and age because of one particular type of jewelry. Does anyone have those things that a lot of the players used to wear? I forget what those are called.
Fightins.
You're not really supposed to wear those. Those are jewelry. The rule's unequivocal. There is one exception. What's the one exception to jewelry? And we will have kids, who have medical or things. They may have epilepsy. They may have issues. Right. I mean, but that's great that you have that. But if they happen to have, in the modern day and age, they've gotten away from wearing the actual necklace or bracelet. But if a kid is doing that, he is entitled to continue to wear that. Now, we're also going to talk about casts, which is at the bottom of 53. This comes up. Yes?
What about religious items?
Can't wear them. Can't wear them. I know that would be really tough if you're, certain of a certain mindset, but no. The bottom line is you can't be cool like your favorite Latin ball player with the crosshair on your neck. Okay, you just can't do that. Casts. We actually had a great player in a cast. Two of them actually. I think we had. How many broken bones did we have in majors last year? I know Sam was. Yeah, Sam. So it happens that you will have players who are no longer able to play. However, they're allowed to sit in the dugout with a cast. They do have to wear their jersey. If for some reason the cast means they can't fit into the jersey or they can't be in uniform, for example, if they need to wear sweats because their foot's in a cast, that's okay. They're allowed to be in the dugout. Okay, you can't be on the field though. For example, you can't have a coach, a base coach, with his arm in a cast. Oh, I broke my wrist skiing last week, but it's no big deal. No, you can't do it.
What if the player is in a cast and can get into a uniform but chooses not to?
He needs to be in uniform. I think he at least needs to wear the jersey to be in the dugout. Because otherwise, then he's not clearly denominated as a player on the team.
Yeah, I had a few issues with that last week.
Did you? Yeah, I really think they have to be in uniform because we enforce rules on who can be in the dugout. Okay, you're going to enforce the rule that there are no more than 3 coaches allowed in the dugout. Okay? You're only going to ump at AA or higher. We're not dealing with the lower levels where you need 3 moms in the dugout to keep everyone on the carpet square so they don't throw dirt in each other's hair. Okay? From AA on up, kids are expected to be able to sit down in a dugout. Okay, you have a manager and 2 coaches. And let's face it, you veterans know what I'm talking about. You look over there and there's like 5 or 6 adults in the dugout. You got to walk over there and say, "Sir, who are your 2 coaches? Get the rest of them out of there." You got to enforce those rules. And Chris's question is a valid one. You don't have hangers on. Oh, Timmy, it's just Timmy's brother. He's kind of like the team mascot. It's no big deal. No, get him out of there, okay? Safety. We want accountability for who's in that dugout. We want to know who's in that dugout. I'm not sure you're insured based on the rules if someone who is not a player or a coach is in that dugout and gets beamed by a ball. I'm not sure that falls within our insurance. Okay. pitcher's gloves, 1.13, I think no white or gray gloves. More importantly, no sweatbands. And that sometimes does happen. A lot of guys wear sweatbands and then they go to the mound and they still wearing their sweatbands. Just take your sweatbands off, okay? But you can't wear sweatbands.
1.13.
Any questions on Rule 1? Now, Rule 1's a big rule. I just covered what's likely to show up on the test, right there, if you were marking that. Okay, I'm not gonna test you on how many inches home plate should be across, or anything like that. I've just covered the parts of Rule 1 that are gonna be in there. Now, not all of them. Some of them will be true or false.
Will there be,
However, there will be a couple where you do, they're mostly will be true or false.
will there be like short answers, like what happens in this scenario?
From time to time, there's usually a couple questions like that. But there won't be any essay questions.
Yeah,
Because I don't want to have to grade those.
right or wrong.
Okay, now for the rest of the time available, we're going to start going through Rule 2. And Rule 2 is one that you really need to put a tape flag or a Post-it on or a dog ear. I will tell you that 3/4 of the rules questions that come up to my level, or that I have when I'm like, did I get that right? I need to go check that, are probably answered by the definitions in Rule 2, okay? Because that's where what will often happen is they're covered elsewhere in the rules. Like a runner is out if this happens, but defining what an interference and obstruction are, they're in the definitions. So Rule 2 is your friend. And we're going to go through a few of these. And first of all, you can skip, balk, because we don't have those at this level. And you can go to ball. Now, when we cover pitching, which I believe is going to be either next week or in Rule 3, week 3, a ball is a pitch, first of all, that you call a ball. But to decide whether to call it a ball, it is a ball that never enters the strike zone. Never enters the strike zone. Now, how many of you struck out at some point, you're like, ball's in the dirt. Would that ever happen to anybody? Come on, it's happened to all.
Yeah.
When someone's throwing a 45-mile-an-hour fastball, it is physically possible for that ball to come across at your thighs and end up at the catcher's feet in the dirt, okay? In Little League, it is possible. And that's what you as the umpire have to do. If that ball ever is in the strike zone, it is a strike. Do not make the mistake of calling balls and strikes based on where the ball ends up. And that's why in field mechanics, you will be taught to take a good position so that you can see and cover the strike zone. All right. Other rules that you need to know in the, by the way, these are alphabetical, which makes it really helpful as well, is on page 56, you got to know what a catch is. I forgot to bring a ball with me, but let's use this, okay? I got a glove in this hand. This is my other hand. I catch it barehanded. Is that a catch?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got it trapped under my armpit. Is this a catch?
No.
Read the rule. It's not a catch yet. It becomes a catch when I get it into my glove or into my hand. Okay? Now where this comes up is catchers and first basemen all rattling around. I got it! I got it! No, it's got to be, in terms of when the guy's foot hits the bag, it's when you have secure control of the ball in your hand or in your glove. And it's right there. A catch is the act of a fielder in getting secure possession in the hand or glove of a ball in flight and firmly holding it before it touches the ground. Now, you can't use your cap, you can't use your chest protector, you can't use your pocket. I don't think that doesn't come into play too often. And then, I think most of you know this from playing and watching a lot of baseball. You've made a catch, it's in your mitt, and then you're going to throw it in, and the ball goes that way. That's still a catch, okay? Ball is live, but it's still a catch if it's in the act of making a throw. Anyone have a question about catches?
What if they did catch it in their pocket or their hat or something?
other precautions and then when they
You're not allowed to use cap, protector, pocket, or other part of the uniform in getting possession. If it so happens that the ball's kind of bouncing around off their chest and they make the play, that's fine. But you can't, you know, like, stick your uniform shirt out like this and, you know, and then make a catch.
The ball and then drop it right now.
I'm not quite sure what you mean. If they have secure possession, you're making the call based on them having secure possession. It doesn't matter if you're late making the call. Like, for example, if they made secure possession and then the butterfly, and then he drops the ball, okay, you know, that's just something that happens. But once he has that secure possession, that's a catch.
What if they either throw their mitt at the ball or catch it, or their mitt falls off their hand and they catch the ball?
Well, those are good questions. If the mitt falls off the hand, that's inadvertent, but it's not a catch because that mitt's no longer attached to it, okay? However, there are consequences for throwing your mitt, and we will cover those when we come to batter and the runner, because they usually involve awarding extra bases if that mitt makes contact with the ball. Okay.
So if you like catch it, so then it wouldn't be it would still be a catch, like you catch it and then you come to gather and you drop it, like you.
That's a catch.
Okay.
It may end up being an error if you allow runners to advance, but that's a catch, yes. Okay.
Tagging up is based on first touch, I guess it is, and you don't care if they catch it as long as the person touches it and the person can tag up. That's what this last sentence says.
Well, and that's a good question. A catch is legal if the ball is finally held by any fielder, even though juggled, or held by another fielder before it touches the ground. The runners may leave the base the instant the first fielder touches the ball. So that's an interesting divergence in the rules, because you hear you can't, and this is a very good point to be made, you can't leave the base until there's a catch. That's actually not true. You can have catches where you can leave the base because it's rattling around. So if you know, Marcus and I are the shortstop and the third baseman, and you know, I let the ball bounce, you know, but it's still in the air, and Marcus is playing a good shortstop and swoops in behind me and dives and catches the ball before it touches the ground. He's made a catch. The runner on third can tag the moment I start goofing the play up, the moment it makes contact with me. And of course, the idea there is you want a sense of fairness for when that person can leave the base. You don't want to reward, you know, Willie Mays out in center, who's like, oh, I got this, watch this. Boop, boop. That's not a catch. Ooh, you left early. You're out.
So if it did like bobble around and the runner left and then the other player catches it, that's still a catch? Like, did he leave early for tagging up?
That's the point I'm trying to make, is he did not. From the moment that makes contact with the first fielder, if it turns out that there's a catch. Now, obviously, if there's no catch, he can run anyway. But if there's a catch, he can leave from when it first makes contact with the first fielder, or the fielder who makes the catch. Okay, let's talk about fair ball. It's real simple. For purposes of whether a ball is fair or foul, it does not matter where the fielder is. It matters where the lines are. So read the definition of a fair ball. It is a batted ball that settles on, and settles means stops, on fair ground between home and first base. So in other words, it's rolling up the first baseline, and it stops on the infield side of the line, you know, on the pitcher side of that first baseline. That is a fair ball. Or that is on or over fair territory when bounding to the outfield past third or first base. Okay? So, it does not have to land in fair territory in the outfield. It does not matter where that ball lands. It matters where that ball lands in relation to the foul line as it passes first base. Are we clear on that?
Yeah. So a ball on the line is still in, correct?
A ball on the
Like
line,
if it's exactly on the line, is that still in?
is that still, no, that's foul. I mean, yeah,
Wait,
line is
if
in.
it's
the
on-
line
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
fair territory, I'm sorry, yes, the line isn't fair territory. because it's, and so is the base, by the way.
So if it hits the base.
Yeah, if it hits the base, it's automatically, because the base is part of fair territory.
Like if it, so if it's like a little like pop line, it hits the left side of the base and kicks.
Once it hits the base, it's a fair ball.
Okay.
Now, let's say that Marcus makes a play, but the front, this desk right here, this is foul territory. I'm the ball over here. He's the first baseman. He comes over, tries to catch a ball. He's standing in fair territory. Touches his mitt, isn't able to make the play. Fair or foul? Foul. Does not matter where the fielder is, okay? You will see a lot of people who misunderstand the rule. He was in fair territory when he touched it. It just doesn't matter. Are we all clear on that? Okay. And that is the note, by the way, which says it should be adjudged according to the relative position of the ball in the foul line, including the foul pole, and not as to whether the fielder is on fair or foul territory at the time such fielder touches the ball. By the way, as to whether a ball is fair or foul, is that a judgment call or application of the rules? Okay. Now, a foul ball, first of all, is anything that's not a fair ball if it's a batted ball in play. But it's a batted ball that settles on foul territory, so it stops, it dies in foul territory, or between home and third base, or that bounds past first or third base on or over foul territory. Now, what do you do about the situation where it's a squirrely little nubber, and it bounces around over in foul territory, and then it just kind of slices back into fair territory?
Fair ball.
Fair ball. What if it's touched in foul territory? Foul ball, because it doesn't make it. Okay, you pick it up and you touch it there. Now, let me tell you where this rule will matter. And I had this come up in a playoff game, and I was sitting there, God, I blow that call, I don't know, okay? The way our infields are cut, especially at our majors field, there's kind of a high edge with the grass. And little rollers down the first and third base line can bounce back and forth several times before they make it to first or third base. You got to keep your eye on it all the way down. Okay? It will matter. Okay. One more thing, and then we're going to be wrapping up for the evening. A foul tip. This is a good one. A foul tip is a batted ball that goes sharp and direct from the bat to the catcher's hand and is legally caught. It's not a foul tip unless caught, and any foul tip that is caught is a strike, and the ball is in play. Now, if it bounces off the chest protector or the mask and the catcher's still able to gather it, it's not a foul tip. So, if it bounces off the mask, but the catcher is still able to snag that ball on the rebound, and the batter has 2 strikes, is that batter out?
No.
Okay, let's say you've got a great catcher, it's a foul tip, he catches it, it's strike 3. Can a runner steal?
No.
A live ball. Live ball. Fair play. Fair amount. Okay. All right. So we're going to pick this up next week. Next week we're going to have Danny Dodge. How many people know Danny? Danny is actually going to cover next week's rules training. You can go ahead and turn